Live from Capitol Hill on a dreary start to Memorial Day weekend. It is Friday, the 22nd of May, year of our Lord, 2020. This is War Room Pandemic, John Fredericks Radio Network, FM 99.1, 103.9 in Chicago and Chicagoland, streaming on Dish Channel 219 now, America's Voice .news, the backbone of the Trump revolution, the streaming service. Also on Newsmax TV, Chris Ruddy and the team down in Florida, now in 70 million homes. And, of course, later in the day, subtitled in Mandarin, blowing through the firewall so that Chinese intelligence can have an easier time of listening to us and watching us on G News, GTV, and G Media, going through all the VPNs for those in China, which are about 1.4 billion, yearning to be free from the Chinese Communist Party. Jack Maxey, Jason Miller, and Raheem Kassam. A lot going on today. It's episode 189, over 8.2 million downloads, 100 million views on all of our platforms. Very honored to have so many people. Hashtag War Room Pandemic. Want you in the show. Want your comments, your observations. Fortune favors boldness, as we say on this show. Fortune favors boldness. And we're proud to announce that we've got a new sponsor, NetSuites by Oracle. American business had a gut punch to it in this coronavirus. Remember, every day we talk about the pandemic, the economic crisis it triggered, the financial crisis on top of that, the geopolitical crisis, and the politics of all of it. Every day we go and disaggregate that problem. Now, Oracle and NetSuite is the number one cloud business service in the world. This is both small business and large business. Your sales is $1 million or $100 million. We're going to talk more about NetSuite later, about how it can help you get your arms around your business. And remember, fortune favors the bold. Go to netsuite.com/Bannon. They give you a total tour today of the 7 actions that businesses must take today. 7 actions that businesses must take today. We're going to get into all of this in the show. I want to thank the guys at NetSuite. As you know, we're very particular about sponsors because we want things that can help you. And remember, we're not here to entertain you. We're here to enlighten you. These 2 hours are to make sure that you've got the news of the day presented in a way that allows you to drive your business forward, your personal life forward, your family, your community, to let you think about it. We're not here to happy talk you. We're particularly not here to spin you. Really want to appreciate not just the deplorables, everybody in the trading desk, all the news producers, the deplorables, Lao Beijing, all the Chinese old 100 names that listen to us later. And particularly the working class and economic nationalist Democrats, the Bernie folks that listen to us, and we try to be even-handed. And today we're going to start in Hong Kong. There's so much happening on Hong Kong. It's going to drive your life. The CCP is totally thrown down, just in the grill of free people out there. Remember, those young people in Hong Kong are not going to back off. You remember I was broadcasting 3, 4, 5 days a week with Miles Groh about Hong Kong starting in June of last year. We're coming up on the 4th June of Tiananmen Square when we started. That's when the big march is starting in Hong Kong. Every day of the week we would do it. We were going to start with that. But Brother Joe Biden, he came out of the Proof of Life podcast, which kind of now down in the – Jack, we need a bigger cough. We're here live in the War Room on Capitol Hill. Jack Maxey's not his first cough of the morning. Where's your mask? Okay. Joe Biden, though, comes out of the Proof of Life podcast, which is now number 900. It started like number 6. It's drifting down. So he stops the Proof of Life. He comes out of the Witness Protection Program, and he gives a couple interviews. First off, his campaign manager should be fired immediately. If you hadn't looked at the polls, just put him back in the closet, right? All you got to do is put him back in the closet for right now. But why would you roll this guy out? Why would you do that?
And he made a bunch of news over this last 12 hours. I mean, we're going to go into the stuff that's making everyone chuckle. And
look, we're not here to be a partisan show. We're here to do pandemic, economic crisis, but it's all about the politics. The politics are interwoven with this, right? The politics on China, the politics on this. We got to get into it. And Biden forces his way into this. And I got to tell you, this is why the Democrats, and I say this as a guy that comes from a family of working class Democrats, this guy is not going to be able to be there in September, October. Donald Trump is a beast, okay? When he's on the campaign trail, when he's getting fired up. Hillary Clinton spent her entire life from the time she was a little girl thinking about being president of the United States. She dedicated her life and put up with all that grief with Bill Clinton for all those years because she is attracted to power. She practiced her entire life and Donald J. Trump bench pressed her in the bench pressed her. The one in St. Louis being particularly bench pressed her. She just not was up. And she was at the top of her game. Okay, she had to take a nap every now and again, but she was at the top of her game. Joe Biden. This is, first off, we're going to get to the content of it, but just the way it's presented, the no energy, the all over the map, it's just not going to work. It's not going to work.
Let's go to the first one. You can hear this thing is so good. He's on with the Breakfast Club this morning.
Thanks so much. That's really our time. I apologize.
You can't do that to black media.
I can't do that to white media and black media because my wife has to go on at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
I'm in trouble.
Listen, you got to come see us when you come to New York, VP Biden.
I will.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
It don't.
Play that. You got to play. This is like so. Play that. You got to play that last part again. This is Charlemagne the God, right?
Yeah,
the God, right? This is the Breakfast Club. This is the #1 show. This is kind of This is Howard Stern's competitor, right, in New York City. A big show, an important show. You got to play the last part again.
VP Biden.
I will.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
I tell you, can I play my not white card here, which I rarely ever play? Can I tell you why I have such a massive, like that's a punch to my chest problem with this, where it's not like it's funny, but it's not even funny, right? This is I had this growing up when I was a youngster trying to cut my teeth in politics in Westminster. I remember a Labour Party activist, the equivalent of a Democrat, came up to me one time in the House of Commons and said to me, "You can't be a conservative. You can't be a right winger." I said, "Well, why is that?" He goes, "You're brown." I remember that moment so vividly of this guy telling me what my political philosophy could be based on the color of my skin. Joe Biden is disgusting.
The other thing too that's just look, it's racist. I mean, Joe Biden
it's condescending.
The way he threw out "ain't."
That's terrible.
That is
it's terrible.
That's even worse than
it's
when
terrible.
Hillary Clinton goes into her Southern African American preacher talk when she
goes to an AME church and all of a sudden she's
all of a sudden she grew up in Montgomery, Alabama.
Exactly. The whole nomenclature changes. The whole rhythm changes.
I pulled that clip if we'd like to hear that too for comparison.
We can let's do that. If you got that, let's
shoot that over to me. We'll do it. But one of the things though, look, Joe Biden, it's just one of those. You just scratch your head and you ain't black. Is like, what? Like, what are you saying? But here's the thing. Joe Biden actually made some real news, not just him being stupid. He made some real news on China and taxes and everything today that is really big stuff.
But he stepped on. Before we go, I want to go to the real Joe Biden news. I can't believe we're starting the show with Joe Biden news. It's so disappointing. We had Hong Kong all teed up. Joe, campaign manager for Joe, put him back in the closet. Okay,
it all ties together though.
I like this.
As we get to it,
inextricably linked.
We're going to show you how he punts on Hong Kong and China, and this is why the Charlemagne the God and Breakfast Club, it all ties together.
Show me what's the poll? We have a poll on Charlemagne the God. Is
Yeah, the Breakfast Club, which is at Breakfast Club AM, has a poll on Twitter. I'm just going to hit refresh on this. 7,190 votes so far. The question is, Joe Biden said, if you have a problem figuring out if you are for him or Trump, you ain't black. Do you agree? 87%, 86.8% said, wait, what? No, as the answer.
Wow.
And
that's news right there. Give me that again.
Yeah, 86.8% so far of 7,000 votes have said no, they do not agree with Joe Biden, that if you have a problem figuring out if you are for him or for Trump, you ain't black. 13.2% say absolutely.
I think it's the ain't is it's condescending.
So the one thing I've learned from my my black friends is that do not try to pretend, if you're a white guy, to ever tell African Americans what they can and can't think. You will so quickly find yourself with a kick to the groin, and that would be on a good day.
Let's go to. He actually made some news. Let's start. You want to start with taxes? Or you want to start with China?
Yeah, let's go to the taxes clip real quick because this is look. I mean, Joe Biden. I'm going to play it and we'll dive into it. He's on CNBC this morning with Andrew Ross Sorkin and Kernan and Becky and the rest of the crew.
first, and I understand that
Sure.
you want to raise taxes. The question is how quickly you do that in the midst of in the midst of this pandemic and in the midst of trying to get the economy to recover.
Nobody making under $400,000 would have their taxes raised, period. Bingo. Let's get people back to work. Let's get them to work. Now, look, here's the deal.
What about corporations?
Tell me how many people are investing that tax break they had in new jobs. Give me your numbers, man. Come on. Let's get real. People are hurting.
All right, so what Joe Biden said right there is he's going to raise taxes on all corporations, which, in case you didn't know, if you get taxes raised on corporations, that means every single commodity or service or anything, any good that you purchase, manufacturing item, everything, the grocery store, that's all. Your taxes are all going to get jacked up. It's not it's all nameless, faceless corporations until you go and like, hey, why does it cost so much more at Walmart today?
It also misses the point of the crisis we're in. The crisis we're in right now, it's not about – look, we've kind of crossed that – we've kind of crossed the Rubicon there. It's not about deficit reduction right now. It's about you've got to get this economy launched, okay? University of Chicago study comes out, and hey, I didn't think – Larry Kudlow was in the Washington Post yesterday. That was not good. Mnuchin and Kudlow and the economics team has got to come up with a playbook, and they got to repeat it, and they should have their own set of numbers. This whole thing about depending on outside guidance, everything like that, it doesn't even work for the science team. It certainly does not work for the financial team. But it shows you Biden really doesn't have an understanding. He's not a particularly bright guy, but he doesn't really have an understanding of where we are, not just in the crisis, where we are in economic history, right? We're kind of into the question is between modern monetary theory, right? QEs and quantitative easing and just flooding the zone with more liquidity, more capital off of the Treasury. We're not into a discussion right now about raising. This would be the last thing you want to do. This would be like in the Great Depression. They argue the Smoot-Hawley. To be brutally frank, this is what Hoover talked about in after the crash. And Hoover started talking about raising taxes and things like that. And I think he tried to do it. They had this discussion about raising taxes. It took confidence away from guys who had a capital problem anyway. This shows you he in this moment in time, he goes back to a standard Democratic playbook that to raise taxes, and nobody's there right now. We're all about how do you kickstart this thing and avoid the University of Chicago. 42% of those jobs are not coming back. You've got to Mark Cuban, these guys. You've got to reinvent almost this economy. This is not the time to be talking about. And look, I'm the first guy to say the concentration of power and how these big tech companies are getting out of control. And I think some of it would be like public utilities. But his thing is such a come on, man. I mean, it's just so drifty.
Right. And when we come back from the break, before we have our first guest, we're going to play the clip that ties this all together. The Breakfast Club, Joe and taxes. We're going to play the Hong Kong clip. And this is why it matters. At a moment when the world is on fire by what China is doing in Hong Kong, the way that they're taking Hong Kong over and they're stomping on people's freedoms, this is why it all ties together. But before we go to the break.
Okay, we're
VP
taking
Biden.
I will.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
I mean, it also just starting a Memorial Day weekend. I mean, Biden, they roll him out to do 2 interviews in one day, right? CNBC and the Breakfast Club. Okay, we're going to return in a moment. War Room Pandemic to kick off your Memorial Day weekend. Got a lot of programming notes when we return.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
President Xi says this virus is a demon, and we cannot allow this demon to hide. I wish he had done a little better job back in late December of 2019 when they knew they had a demon and they knew it had human-to-human transmission, community spread. What Donald J. Trump, the 45th President of the United States, says, nothing is inevitable. And by human action and human agency, we're going to get through this. We're going to grind through this. Let's go back to Joe Biden making news this morning, and we're going to tie all this together, the pandemic, the economic crisis, the financial crisis, and the geopolitical with Joe Biden himself.
Mr. Vice President, final question, and it's on the news this morning. Just wanted to get your thoughts and really your thoughts on how you think the United States should react and what you would do if you were the president at this time. China's legislator, as you may have seen, unveiled a sweeping proposal of new security laws that effectively take a firm control of Hong Kong and really crack down on the anti-government protesters. What would you do?
I'd be at the UN with my UN ambassador, and I'd be insisting and calling out what the United States has always done. Overwhelming violation not only of an agreement, but of human rights. The silence on our part has been devastating for people around the world. All it does is encourage thugs and dictators, which, in fact, I think the president has some kind of affinity for.
So that's Joe Biden with Andrew Ross Sorkin on CNBC, again saying that I'm going to go to my UN or my ambassador to the UN and then go to the UN, and we're going to talk about what we always do, which, by the way, you notice that Joe Biden's been dead silent on the Uyghurs.
On all of it. By the way, China sits on the permanent member of the Security Council. You're not going anywhere, Joe. They're going to say, no, I don't think we're going to do this. Okay? This is naive. This is just hot air. He's had every opportunity to be in China's face, and he is almost a collaborator. Okay? He's almost a collaborator with these guys. He's got kids got business relationships. We've never seen the documentation on that. He's responsible. Obama turned to him and said, "You got this, Joe, on the pivot to Asia." And look at where we are, and look at where we are on the militarization of the islands in the South China Sea, which is going to lead, if it ever gets to a kinetic war, which we're trying to stop by engaging in this now hot information, cyber, and economic war. They lay it out here 25 years ago. They don't want to fight a kinetic war, but they will if they have to. The South China Sea is the hot spot. Joe Biden is the one that screwed that up.
There's something even worse to that, though.
There's worse than that?
Yes, because
that's so weak. I mean, that's the kind of thing, and that's the kind of thing that Richard Haas in the Morning Joe Crest goes, I love this. He's going to go to the UN. No, you're not. The Chinese are going to say, we're a permanent Security Council.
To that point, if you're watching Morning Joe and Karen, which, by the way, Karen, I don't know why your name's not in the title. You got the ring. You should at least be able to add it to the title for the show.
Absolutely. We're going to get more to that later. This whole thing.
Morning Karen.
Morning Karen.
Yeah, Morning Karen. But let's play. Here's why Joe is the sleepy, creepy Joe. Here's why he's being such a wuss when it comes to China.
For China, I've spent a lot of time. Apparently, I was told by the folks of state I've spent more time in private meetings with Xi Jinping than any world leader. I have 25 hours of private dinners with him, just he and I, and one interpreter.
Okay, I want to see the transcripts of that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jack Maxey. You're the one that found this, because this was the Ukraine. This is part of the. This is on War Room Impeachment. The back part of that's talking about the Ukraine. Jack watches the whole thing, probably the only guy in the universe, and says, "Hey," he starts off by talking about Xi. I think it's Richard Haas and the Council on Foreign Relations. This is the big. Does Joe know what he's doing? If you watch it, the guy's drifting in and out. 25 transcripts. What deals were you cutting with Xi? How has she run the tables on us since then if Joe Biden is the guy supposed to be the hammer?
But how does Joe Biden give that BS answer to Andrew Ross Sorkin saying, I'm going to go to my ambassador to the UN and we're going to go to the UN? So one of two things here. Either A, he doesn't want to actually criticize anything about Xi because he's just a total wuss and he believes in this globalist nonsense. But the other thing, too, is Joe Biden. I thought you had the direct dial. I thought you had the red bat phone, right. The red communist China bat phone right on your desk. You spent 25 hours of one-on-one dinners. You can't pick up the phone? You can't call Xi?
Steve, you hit it directly. You know what we need to do? Pompeo obviously has the records of these meetings with Vice President, the State Department. I want all the transcripts.
Release the transcripts.
I'd like to. Someone should interview Lieutenant Colonel.
Release the transcripts.
Someone should ask Lieutenant Colonel Vindman what he thinks about it.
He says they have.
He says the State Department told him about that he had these. So the State Department has it.
I want to bring in now.
And I'd like to know who at the State Department was keeping score and thought that was a good idea.
Just want to bring this home on this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who was Obama's last ambassador to China?
It was Max Baucus.
It was Max Baucus,
yeah.
Who called themselves Max Baucus's greatest cheerleader for that role.
Was it Joe Biden?
It was Joe Biden. And Max Baucus, and talk about one of the only people who go through the
Max Baucus bought and paid for.
7 days ago, Max Baucus gives, and Jason, I've sent you this, we'll play the clip on the show later on. Max Baucus gives an interview with CGTN. This is Chinese state media, where he says that Joe Biden will not criticize China publicly.
Whoa, we got that clip?
We do have the clip.
Okay, we're going to have that. Let me bring in now Chris Iacovella. He is an American hero, CEO of the American Securities Association. This represents all the small regional securities firms to make sure that Wall Street's not shaking you down and to make sure that small companies throughout the country, entrepreneurs, the people that listen to this show, get access to capital. And so far, all we've got is the people get access to capital are the Chinese Communist Party's companies. Chris, you're a patriot. You've been fighting this fight. Tell us what you're doing, and particularly going after Larry Fink and the guys at BlackRock.
So, Steve, thanks a lot for having me on the show. It's a real honor. I'll tell you, I have to thank you and the group that you formed and have been working with, the Committee on Present Danger China, for really elevating this issue last year. We started working on this with you guys and doing some research, and the more that we started to understand how capital was leaving this country and how exposed the American investor was becoming, the more we wanted to raise awareness. And just this week, I've received 3 separate letters from investors across the country thanking us for all of our efforts on this front. And they're now sending letters to the SEC telling them to get these companies out of our market. And yesterday, we had a very big win that happened when Senator Kennedy and Senator Van Hollen went to the Senate floor with a bill that would stop the Chinese companies from continuing to access our capital markets, and it passed unanimously. And that usually only happens for post office namings. So that's a big win for us.
You're saying it passed, I want people to understand this, 100 to nothing in the United States Senate to start to enforce that Chinese companies, these CCP-backed companies, have to play by the same rules that American entrepreneurs, the same accounting rules, the same disclosure efforts, all of that. There's just a level playing field between American companies and these Chinese companies.
That's right, 100 to nothing. And now it goes over to the House. The House is going to quickly do is a highly bipartisan issue. And what it's going to do is stop American money going into fraudulent Chinese companies. These companies have been deceiving our investors, our public, and the integrity of our capital markets for over 10 years now. This has been a methodical deceit that has been perpetrated by the CCP on our capital markets. Started with reverse mergers. Then it went to, Wall Street's going to bring state-owned enterprises into our markets and have people invest in them. And the key is investors do not have any insight into the financial reporting of these companies. Every single time our regulators try to audit the auditors of these Chinese companies, the CCP asserts a state secret and says, no, you can't look at this. Well, what we're learning is that the reason why they don't want this to happen is because you have frauds. Luckin Coffee's just the latest in a long string of these examples, where it was billed by Wall Street and promoted through the financial media as the Chinese Starbucks. It's going to have storefronts all over China and expand throughout the rest of the world. Well, guess what? $310 million worth of restating their financials because they were fraudulent. They made up the sales of all those cups of coffee.
Chris, hang on. We got about a minute, but this is what people don't understand. How does Wall Street – we understand the CCP is trying to hide everything and act like so nobody can understand what's going on. How does Wall Street, who are supposed to be the smartest guys in the room, how are they taking American pension fund money and American insurance company money from all the little guys? We've got about a minute. How are they allowing American money to go into these companies? They're supposed to be so brilliant. So what's the scam?
It's very simple, Steve. They have a global identity, not a national identity. And what they're doing is they collaborate with the CCP. The CCP pays them millions in fees. They promote these companies into our markets as the next greatest thing, selling the China growth story, which is, suspect at best. And then people get into these companies. The money goes right to the CCP. The Wall Street gets their fees. And then they start adding them to indexes and then promote the indexes, saying you need access to international returns. And at the end of the day, you look at our markets, we were at 666 in 2009, or just under 3,000 now. That's a pretty good return. It's unclear to me why you have to go and put your money into China in order to seek a better return than that.
So, Chris, how do people give you your Twitter handle, and how do people get more access to you? They got to find out more about the American Securities Association. How do we do it?
So our Twitter handle is @American Securities, and you can find out a lot more about what we do. That we just launched a website, mydatamyvote.com. That's going to tell you about a lawsuit that we just entered into against the SEC to try to stop them from collecting all of the information of every one of your listeners who has money in the market and centralizing it in a database here in Washington for Chinese hackers to access.
Chris,
so we want to stop that. We want your listeners to help us stop it too.
We'll do it. Chris Iacovella, he is an American patriot, an American hero, and a warrior standing up for you every day of the week. And trust me, Wall Street's trying to run this guy out of this organization because he will not back down. We're going to have much more about this throughout the show. We're going to return in a moment. War Room Pandemic. We're going to get back to Hong Kong and Joe Biden and the UN.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to War Room Pandemic. It's so much going on. Let's go to, we're in Hong Kong, the United Nations, Joe Biden. Remember, this is why Hong Kong's important to you. One, it's one of the most important capital markets in the world, second only or third only to the city of London and Wall Street. Your economic prosperity comes from, part of it comes from an integrated world economy based upon the nation state. That's what we're talking about, the Westphalian system, the nation state. This is what Donald Trump represents. What Joe Biden represents is the 30, 40 years of rot in the American elites that have had us kowtow these lateral institutions that had no punch with the Chinese. In fact, agreed with the Chinese in this new system that was being built up around China as the manufacturing superpower. Those days are over. One of the reasons it's over is Donald Trump laid it on the table in 2016. This is what he ran on. Hillary Clinton was a globalist. Donald Trump was a nationalist. That's why he won in Michigan. That's why he won in Wisconsin. That's why he won in Ohio, Iowa, Pennsylvania. Yesterday was a perfect example. I don't think, and I understand that the comms office, because you got President Trump, he's going to do what he's going to do. However, yesterday, to me, the last 48 hours was the best example of Trump's economic nationalism between Flow Corporation down in Richmond, bringing generic drug manufacturing in a high-tech way back to this plant in Richmond with hundreds of workers being hired to bring back the precursors, to bring back the active pharmaceutical ingredients, to bring back the generic drug manufacturing in an environmentally sensitive, sustainable manufacturing operation. Then yesterday, he goes up to Detroit to Ford Motor, where Ford and General Electric, without using the Defense Production Act and forcing them to get incentivized to make what? The crisis of 2 months ago of ventilators, they make a ventilator that is now we're going to be a net exporter of ventilators, the United States of America, because we're making them here. The colonel that wrote this book, Unrestricted Warfare, The Game Plan to Destroy America by the Chinese Communist Party and the PLA, he gave an interview. He was a colonel when he wrote that book. He's a major general today. He's one of the most brilliant strategists in the world. He gives an interview to the South China Morning Post. He goes, hey, America can innovate. America's got great research. They get the best universities. They got it, but they can't make anything because Wall Street shipped it all over here. We can make it. He used a specific example, Jack Maxey. He says on these ventilators, they can assemble all the ventilators they want, but the ventilators have, and I think he said 1,400 component pieces, and we make 1,200 of them. So try making your ventilators if we decide we're not going to send the component pieces. Now, the brilliance of Ford Motor and GE, as Jack Maxey brings up this morning, I think these ventilators have 380 pieces, of which we're making 310.
Right, and what's also interesting as we go forward with this problems with China, we get all of our dishwashers and our refrigerators and all this stuff, but what people neglect to remember is it is our U.S. manufactured chips that sit inside those big metal boxes and make them operate. So for the American people out there listening, and we're obviously have a little trepidation about what's going on with China and the supply chain, Be not afraid.
Yeah, but hang on. Don't get too cocky there on me, brother. Don't get too cocky. Remember, One Belt, One Road was a logistic. It was a 3-point thing they were converging on. One Belt, One Road is the massive logistics change that ties it all together. The second was Made in China 2025. Made in China. And they laid it on the table in our face when Joe Biden was vice president of the United States of America, and he was the guy that President Obama designated to do the pivot to Asia. China came out with the Made in China 2025 on their watch, and that was the convergence of advanced chip design, robotics, and artificial intelligence. That merger would make them so they had designs on stealing forced technology transfers and stealing the technology to get into advanced chip design. So we weren't going to have that anymore. Last was Huawei, the 5G quantum computing. The convergence of those three forces were going to make them the fourth industrial revolution superpower. The reason the United States is a superpower, besides the underlying grit and determination of our people and understanding in the Judeo-Christian West, we know that we're made in the image and likeness of God, right? And that's what our freedom is based upon. It's not deemed by any government. That's an unalienable right. That's a natural right from God to you as an individual. That gives you bigger standing than any government, right? That's the basis of the Judeo-Christian West. That's what this fight's about. But it's manifested in guys like Hamilton. I'm going to throw a few random names. Hamilton and Lincoln and Polk, the 19th Henry Clay, the American system. What's the American system? The first thing that, Alexander Hamilton wasn't there writing the Declaration of Independence. That was for the lawyers, okay? And the Declaration of Independence, obviously a divinely inspired document. However, another divinely inspired document came from the kid of questionable parentage, right, from Jamaica, right, who came up here hard scrabbled, basically as a serf, right, as a kid with nothing, right, whose mom was what we call a character, right, and had to hard scrabble, fight his way for everything, wrote one of the most brilliant, the report on manufacturers, and they're writing the Declaration, he's writing, hey, I got the legal part of it, we got to do that, but hey, in this vast wilderness, we have to build a manufacturing powerhouse or we're never going to be free of this empire called the British Empire. That's what Donald Trump is, the first president to get in the grill of the elites. And to have an airhead, and that's what Joe Biden is. First off, the Democratic Party and the Bernie guys, why have you not nailed him? He's the senator from Wilmington, Delaware. Wilmington, Delaware is the post office for the globalist corporations. They're all in Wilmington. You don't see any manufacturing in Wilmington. They got a post office drop and a lawyer. In a court, right? In a court, right? It's the protection of the global corporation. Joe ain't the Joe from Scranton. He's the Joe from the Wilmington post office drop of the global corporation, and he does their bidding, whether it's NAFTA, whether it's all the trade deals. And this is what he did in his stretch as vice president of the United States. We're going to go through his records. And if the Democrats want to defend that in September and October of 2020, okay, in the upper Midwest, let's get it on. And if you think that guy's going to be a stand-up and debate Donald J. Trump on this topic, you are sadly wrong, okay? But here's what we can do. Let's agree to the rules right now for the debate. He can have Jill up there on the stage with him. I'll just have Jill. Jill can sit there and turn the pages for him. With the placards, because she's helping him all the time anyway on the podcast, right? If it wasn't for Jill, the guy would you can't do it. You got to have that podcast early in the morning. If you go after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you got Sundowner. That's why he's doing the stuff in the morning. He's doing the Breakfast Club and he's doing CNBC. He's loading the poor guy up with 4 and 5 before 9 o'clock in the morning because, hey, after that, it's downhill. Hillary was taking a nap. This guy is a nap. Okay, let's go. We got more Baucus. We got more Biden. Look, I'm just trying to help the Democrats out. Trump loves a fight. Okay, Trump loves a fight. He'd like to take Hillary on again because that would be a classic, a rematch, right? This is not going to be a rematch. Biden is not going to be able to stand up to Donald Trump is relentless. He's like a howitzer. Kaboom, kaboom. This guy is not going to be able to stand up. It's not too late to switch him out. You better have your convention. You better not do this convention, do the convention digitally. You better get there. It's Milwaukee, right? Everybody better take over. You better Milwaukee and make some changes because what showed today is not going to hack it. Let's play it.
Yep. So let's do the quick level set on what he said to Andrew Ross Sorkin, the reminder of what he said to Xi, and then we have the bombshell that Raheem found and wrote up for National Pulse. Here we go.
Mr. Vice President, final question. It's on the news this morning. Just wanted to get your thoughts and really your thoughts on how you think the United States should react and what you would do if you were the president at this time. China's legislator, as you may have seen, unveiled a sweeping proposal of new security laws that effectively take a firm control of Hong Kong and really crack down on the anti-government protesters. What would you do?
I'd be at the UN with my UN ambassador, and I'd be insisting and calling out what the United States has always done.
His UN ambassador, who he's going to announce, Max Baucus, right? Max Baucus will be his. Listen to the kind of guys he hangs around. Collaborator. How much money is Max Baucus taken from the Chinese Communist Party? How many consulting deals does Max Baucus have? Okay?
Let's be clear about Max Baucus as well. When we started the show and I wanted to get that thing about Max Baucus in the A block, that's not all Max Baucus is. He's not just running around giving CGTN and CCTV interviews, right? He's actually consulting with CCP-linked companies. So we put up this 1,500-word report yesterday going through Joe Biden, Max Baucus, the whole trajectory of Baucus to power, the recent interview that Baucus gave backing Biden, and then we've looked into who Baucus has been working for since he left his position supposedly representing the United States in China. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, but Chinese CCP-linked companies are not that likely to appoint somebody to their boards unless they've been helping them out, unless they've been the counterintuitive representative to Beijing, which is to say that they're helping the CCP. Max Baucus sits on the board of Alibaba and Ingram Micro, two CCP-linked companies. The story is all there. It's up in the National Pulse, and I got to correct you, Jason. It wasn't my work. It was Natalie Winters and her work that got all of this stuff up. And I want to play the part where he's interviewed by CGTN. We found this yesterday just as the story was about to pop.
And what is CGTN?
CGTN is the CCP international media arm, state-backed Chinese media.
So they have CCTV is the BBC of China. And it's completely state-run. It's a pure propaganda. In fact, the State Department just designated it as a state-run propaganda arm together. And now they've got an internet. In the last couple of years, they to impress it, they went to London and they've got a kind of a global. They try to put a nicer face on the propaganda, but it's just as brutal as it's just the CCTV's international
So
arm.
if you're doing interviews on that, like, you're already there.
Yeah, it's like doing it on the Russian thing, right?
It's known as a long-standing weapon in Beijing's arsenal of repression, CGTN, right? And that's from Freedom House. You have to understand that that's who Max Baucus is giving interviews for.
Information warfare.
And let's listen to what he said about Biden's approach to China.
I think you'll see certainly competition with China. I think you'll see Joe Biden who will not publicly criticize China near as much. I think he's smarter than that. You
got to replay that. That's going to make my head blow up. This is from Max Baucus, who is the ambassador to China, who's going to be one of the top guys in Biden's administration, right? He's one of these democratic globalists selling out working class people. This is what Bernie and ran against, but you never brought the heat. That's why Joe Biden's the nominee. Where was this Max Baucus clip at the time? Bernie said the Bernie people ought to be spitting mad, and this is the reason. It's always a pillow fight with Bernie. Hey, if we were doing that, it wouldn't have been a pillow fight. It's a knife fight, okay? Let's play this again.
Yeah, and this is Max Baucus officially unlocking his globalist cuck badge.
President Trump has. I think you'll see certainly competition with China. I think you'll see Joe Biden who will not publicly criticize China near as much. I think he's smarter than that. He's more gravitas. He won't do things like that.
Joe Biden and gravitas.
He won't do things like that.
Max Baucus said in a CNN interview, by the way, earlier on in the year, he said we're entering into an era which is similar to Joe McCarthy. Does that make him Alga Hiss?
Whoa. I got to tell you, go ahead.
15 seconds, bring it all back together.
I've spent a lot of time. Apparently, I was told by the folks of state, I've spent more time in private meetings with Xi Jinping than any world leader. I have 25 hours of private dinners with him, just he and I. And
release the transcripts. We want to see the transcripts of what he was talking to President Xi in the 25 hours of private dinners. Be back with War and Pandemic in just a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Look, 2020 has been a gut punch to business. Everything's changed in the last 10 weeks since this pandemic came roaring out of China. Now, NetSuite by Oracle, that's the world's #1 business system in the cloud. They are here to help you reorganize your business, do a complete assessment of where you are. They've got a great new study out, and you can get there by going to netsuite.com/Bannon. You can get to the 7 actions businesses need to take now. Well, listen, fortune favors the bold. And if you get on top of this, this can help you organize your entire business, the financials, your economic models, your HR, your inventory, everything related to your business comes out of NetSuite. It's for the entrepreneur. Now listen, whether your business has got $1 million in revenue or whether it's got $100 million in revenue, this is the software package for entrepreneurs. One of the reasons we're so proud of their sponsor, and we're going to be talking about this in the days and weeks ahead. Look, we realize this is very uncertain times. You need a way to kind of get grounded. One way is to get tools that work, So in this day and age, that's why you need NetSuite by Oracle. I want to thank the folks at NetSuite and want to go online. You go to this thing, the 7 actions you got to be taking. Remember, we're action. That's what's going to get us out of here. Talking about action, there's some action today in the War Room. Great finds. We got another big scoop by Jack Maxey. We get back our favorite Lancet. If Rachel Maddow's producers are, we're back in the Lancet business. But here's what's important. Everybody's talking about institutions, and Joe Biden's talking about the United Nations, and they're talking about Lancet, which is a great publication. Yes, but these institutions have to work. What Donald Trump did, he's a disruptor in that he's challenged this. Joe Biden is business as usual. And I think it's incumbent upon the State Department to now release. We got to see the transcripts, and they shouldn't be redacted. Let's see the transcripts of what Joe Biden and Max Baucus was the ambassador. Max Baucus had to be debriefed. So the next time Max Baucus is on MSNBC running down Donald Trump, hey, that's fine. I realize you're a partisan. I got it. Guys, Republicans are going to run down Joe Biden. But we're just trying to be even-handed here. We are anti-CCP. Okay, we're anti-CCP. We're going to get to. I don't think we have time in this. Maybe we do. The Michael Pillsbury last night and Lou Dobbs went after this new. There was a new document put out by the National Security Council at the White House. It was released yesterday. Josh Rogan, I think, broke it. Josh Rogan's been on the show. Fabulous reporter. Comments at the Washington Post, and his take on it, that this document came out from the National Security Council. It was required under the National Defense Authorization Act to go to Congress to kind of give the direction of where we're taking our Chinese strategy, right? Since it was really in President Trump's first year in 2017, he rewrote the national strategy to say, hey, the war on terror is after we take down the caliphate of ISIS, of which he did in the first 18 months, the war on terror is important, but we now have a great power, not just competition, but I think confrontation with China that's been going on for 20 years, but nobody's wanted to focus on. So they had this document. They had to get Josh Rogan, did an amazing job. And Josh Rogan's take was, hey, President Trump's direction on China has kind of taken both warring sections inside the White House, really the anti-China, the anti-CCP element of the Peter Navarros, the Steve Bannons, the Matt Pottingers, kind of what we call the hawks, with the Wall Street guys, Kudlow and Secretary of Treasury, all of those guys to kind of bring them along into one organized effort. Now, the document is diplomatic. It's maybe not as hardcore as we like it. I think Pillsbury and Lou's been the original warrior on this from day one, and Michael Pillsbury wrote a great book, The 100-Year Marathon, although Pillsbury goes out of his way to say, hey, Bannon and these guys, the Committee of the Presidents, they're all super hawks, right? They're super hawks. They just want to confront CCP all the time. You're correct, sir. You are correct, because they are the font of all evil, and the reason you and the audience are now sheltered in your home And D.C. just announces today they're not going to open the schools up until we have a vaccine or cure. D.C. public school, I think we're going to have to get a cure. I think we're going to have to get.
Yeah, how's the cure for cancer going?
How's the cure for HIV? I don't think we're going to have a cure. We may have therapeutics, right? And hopefully with these studies are being done, Jack, we're going to get there sooner than ever. But Trump challenges all of this. And that's why even this document is maybe not as hardcore as you want, but it's a document. It's kind of a positioning document, and it does position us in a great powers competition.
And it's sending the signal, guys, we are changing our strategic approach. And as we've seen, I mean, look at the numbers on the American public, the way things have moved, not just with regard to China being a competitor, but with regard to China being an enemy, with America being at war with China, how Americans from both parties are viewing China and their actions is being an attack. And those numbers have shifted radically, not just because Donald Trump's been in office, but because of coronavirus. People are getting the joke now.
Andrew Ross Sorkin does a fabulous job. In fact, he had a conference, his Deal Book conference in the fall, had a whole panel just on China where I was able to confront Eric Schmidt and others, say, hey, they're at war with us. They're saying, oh, we can out-innovate away. No, that time is past. It's not an innovation competition. They're at war with us economically. But Sorkin asked a great question. He didn't have time because of the length of the show. My question to Joe Biden, you're going to go to the UN. Okay, they're a member of the Permanent Security Council. They're going to say no interest in even discussing this, but you're going to go to the UN. You're going to go to the UN with your ambassador. And what are you going to say, Joe? You gave us the human rights thing. Where are you guys? Do you support Joe Biden? If you support that so much, sir, why are you not on Nancy Pelosi to join Leader McCarthy, the minority leader, to have the joint task force in Congress today? You've got the Republicans up there working away of how you weave together every element of all the legislative agenda on Capitol Hill, how it has a commonality of anti-CCP to confront the CCP. And Chris Iacovella just tells you the House just gets the bill that co-sponsored by a Democrat and a Republican that passes 100-0. Where's Joe Biden saying that's got to be passed this weekend? But where's Joe Biden telling Nancy Pelosi, hey, Nancy, you're a fighter on Tiananmen Square. You're missing in action now. Joe Biden's missing in action. He always takes the party line of the Chinese Communist Party. When President Trump stops the air traffic in, it's Joe Biden calling him a nativist, a xenophobe. And what is Max Baucus? Max Baucus, who I think he's going to be Secretary of State underneath Joe Biden. That's the question for Joe Biden. Is Max Baucus going to be is this Quisling going to be your Secretary of State? Because you're hugging up on him over in Beijing when you're having the 25 hours of private one-on-one dinners.
Can we remind people just real quick what he said?
President Trump has. I think you'll see certainly competition with China. I think you'll see Joe Biden who will not publicly criticize China near as.
Will not publicly criticize. Thank you, National Pulse.
You got it.
Actually, the staff of the National Pulse, because I know how it is to manage Raheem Kassam. So somebody over there is doing some hard work. We're going to be back for the second hour in just a second.